The story of Charles Darwin. Once upon a time, there was a man named Charles Darwin. He was born a long time ago, on February 12, 1809, in a city called Shrewsbury in England. When Charles was a little boy, he loved to explore the world around him. He would look at bugs, plants and animals, and wonder how everything worked. Charles didn't know it yet, but he was going to do something very special with all the things he saw in nature. When Charles was young, he went to school, but he didn't love it very much. He didn't like sitting at a desk all day and doing his homework. Instead, he loved being outside looking at the trees, rocks, and animals. Charles's father thought he should study hard and become a doctor. But Charles didn't want to be a doctor. He wanted to learn about the world and the creatures in it. So, after a while, Charles decided to go on an adventure. He didn't know it yet, but this adventure was going to change the world. When Charles was a young man, he was invited to go on a big ship called the HMS Beagle. This ship was going to travel all over the world, visiting many different places. Charles was very excited. He was going to see new animals, plants, and places that no one in England had ever seen before. Charles's job on the ship was to be a naturalist, which means he was going to study nature. Plants, animals, and everything around him. The ship sailed for many months, and Charles saw many amazing things. One of the most exciting places he visited was a group of islands called the Galapagos Islands. These islands were very special because each island had its own types of animals. Charles saw giant turtles, strange-looking birds, and colorful lizards. The animals were all different from the animals he had seen before. Charles was very curious about the animals. He began to notice something interesting. The birds on each island looked a little bit different. Some had big beaks, and some had small beaks. Some turtles were big, and some were small. Charles started to wonder, why are the animals on each island so different from each other? He spent many months studying the animals, looking at them closely, and taking notes. He noticed that the animals seemed to change over time. He thought that maybe animals changed to fit their environment. For example, birds with big beaks could crack open hard seeds, while birds with small beaks could eat smaller seeds. This helped the birds survive. After many years of studying and thinking, Charles came up with a big idea. He thought that all living things, plants, animals, and even people, changed over time. This idea was called evolution. Evolution meant that animals and plants were not always the same. They changed slowly over many years, to become better at living in their environment. Charles wrote down all his ideas in a book called On the Origin of Species. In this book, he explained how animals and plants could change over time. He said that only the strongest and best adapted animals survived. This idea was called natural selection. It meant that animals that were good at surviving in their environment would live longer and have babies. The babies would also be good at surviving, and the animals would slowly change over many generations. Charles's idea about evolution was very different from what people thought before. Many people believed that animals and plants were made exactly the way they were, and they never changed. But Charles showed that life on Earth was always changing and adapting. At first, not everyone agreed with Charles. Some people didn't believe in his ideas and thought he was wrong. But over time, more and more scientists studied Charles's work. They found that Charles's ideas made sense. They saw that animals really did change over time. They saw how animals in different places looked different and were adapted to live in their special environments. Charles spent the rest of his life studying nature and writing books. He became very famous, and many people started to believe in his ideas about evolution. He showed the world that life on Earth was always changing, and that everything in nature had a purpose. Charles Darwin's work helped scientists understand how life on Earth began and how it changes. He taught people that living things don't stay the same. They change over time to survive and grow. He also helped people see that nature is full of surprises and wonders. Today, Charles Darwin is known as one of the most important scientists in history. His ideas about evolution and natural selection changed the way people think about life. He helped us understand that all living things are connected, and we all share a common ancestor. Charles Darwin's story teaches us an important lesson. Never stop asking questions and looking at the world around you. If you're curious and willing to learn, you can discover amazing things, just like Charles did. He didn't give up on his dream to understand nature, and because of that, we all learned so much about the world we live in.